Welcome back, everybody. And today we're going to move on with motivation as we take a look at a few more theories. Today we want to take a look at expectancy theory in particular. Now we're going to take a look at needs theory and all of that, but today I want us to focus heavily upon expectancy theory. Not that we won't touch on the others, but I want you to take a look at expectancy theory because it explains much of why people do and do not engage in behaviors that you may want them to engage in, especially when it comes to ministry or in the workplace. So let's go ahead today and we'll take a look as we further our studies along in the area of motivation. Well, welcome back, everybody, and today we are moving along in Chapter 8 as we take a look once again at motivation and empowerment. Now, if you remember, yesterday we looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's a fundamental theory of motivation that explains why people do what they do or motivated to do what they do. A person is really not satisfied, according to Maslow, with where they're at. They're continually striving for more, and this helps us to understand what drives people. Once a certain amount of needs are met, then they move on to satisfying other needs. Now today we're going to take a look at a few other examples of motivational theories. We're going to take a look at Hertzberg's two-factor theory. We're going to take a look also at McClelland's acquired needs theory, and we're also going to take a look at Vroom's expectancy theory. So let's go ahead and get started. Now Hertzberg was the proponent or the main supporter of the idea that when it comes to motivation, you can't just give a person pay or basic things and then be motivated to go and be productive. Hertzberg argued that there had to be two presents in the workplace, and whether that workplace is an organization or whether it's in ministry. Hertzberg believed that there had to be what's called hygiene factors and motivators. Now, hygiene factors are those things that have to be present, or the person won't even work in the first place or even come to work. And hygiene could be equated to what Maslow considered to be survival needs or physiological needs. Now, according to Hertzberg, if we equated these hygiene factors to the work area, he would say that employees have to have good working conditions. No one wants to work in an unsafe environment. Pay had to be adequate. Company policies needed to support the worker or promote a good working environment. And there needed to be interpersonal relationships. Now, if these are not met, then most people won't even work for that company in the first place. So these are the basics that have to be there. Now, just because you're getting paid and you get along with everybody, that doesn't mean you're going to be motivated to do your job. So the other side of the coin, according to Hertzberg, would be the second dimension, which are called motivators. And this includes, as you see here, job satisfaction, achievement, recognition, and opportunity for growth. So both of those, if you have them, the higher likelihood you're going to experience when it comes to motivating your employees and them doing more than just what's being asked of them. Now, Exhibit 8.5 shows you a little diagram of that. You have those who are highly satisfied in those elements and highly dissatisfied, and then you have the middle of the road approach. So if you see here hygiene factors are not met, then you're going to be experiencing people with high dissatisfaction. If they're not getting enough pay, if the supervisors aren't treating them well, if they aren't getting along, then you're not going to have a satisfied worker. In fact, you're going to see, probably as a result of that, high absenteeism, high turnover, lack of productivity. But when you have those going for you, and then you also have these areas of satisfaction, which is achievement, recognition, the work itself, responsibility, personal growth. All of these can influence the worker to do more and to be more motivated. So having the hygiene factors and the motivators present in the workplace, these are going to be crucial for you to understand and apply so that the worker will be motivated. Now, McClelland had a theory that came out, and he believed that people have different needs. They have a need, as you can see, for achievement. They have a need for affiliation. They have a need for power. And you acquire those during your lifetime. And today, in businesses, it used to be that you could work your way up the ladder, and if you did a good job, it made no difference where you started, but that you could realistically expect to wind up being in top positions. Today, we still have that opportunity, but today we're more transient. Many workers today won't be in an organization for more than maybe several years. Now, that's not the rule, but you do see a lot of transition today in businesses. But the need for achievement, affiliation, and power have not changed. So let's take a look at some of these needs that McClelland talks about that we aspire to. The need for achievement. And this is the desire to accomplish something difficult, attain a high standard of success, master complex tasks, and surpass others. One of the fundamentals of management and leadership, when you have a new person come to your company and they are there brand new and so forth, you want to give them challenging goals, but you don't want to give them goals that are going to be above their or beyond their ability to meet. For instance, if you wanted a person a brand new manager to increase productivity by 60% in the coming month, well, that person may not be able to meet that because they're learning the job, they're learning the environment, and they're trying to establish themselves. But you don't want to make it too easy on them. We want you to increase productivity by 2%. Well, that's fairly easy, perhaps, and that may be under expecting what a person can be able to do. So you want to be able to set a goal for these individuals that will challenge them, but not be too lofty that they can't be expected to meet those goals. You might want to say we need to increase productivity by 30%. Now that would be challenging, and what that does, if they accomplish that goal, which they should, if you match the appropriate requirement to that person's ability, it's going to give them a sense of confidence that they will carry on. Now, if they start out of the gate failing, then that's going to leave an impression upon them. So we want to give them the opportunity to shine. We want to build their confidence up by giving them tasks and objectives that are challenging but not overwhelming. And then as they move along, the challenges can become more challenging. So the need for achievement. The need for affiliation, and that's the desire to form close relationships, avoid conflict, and establish warm relationships. Now, folks, if you are in an organization, whether it's church or whether it's in business, you're going to have, if you have two people working, more than two people or two people, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have differences of opinion. You're going to have individual interest involved in all of that, but even though you can't avoid that, you do need to be able to understand the dynamics of cohesion and collaboration so that you can be on civil terms when you are discussing issues that involve the company, to not get personal with the confrontation or maybe the conflict, but to act in the company's best interest. And folks, that's what endears you to a company, to be able to navigate those really those troubled waters of conflict and controversy so that you can get things accomplished. But people in general, I would assume, want to be able to work in a organization where people do get along and there's not fighting and so forth. I was interviewing one time for a position at another college, and this was a director's position, so it was fairly high up. And the person just gave me glowing reviews of the school and how everything was state of the art, and that the pay and the benefits and all of that stuff was second to none. The person took me around and introduced me to everybody. And when I teach HR, I warn people against that, because if they go to that length, they're implying a contract, but that's a different class. But anyway, I went around and looked at everything, and it all looked nice, and the office that I would be occupying looked nice. The classrooms looked nice and were high-tech and all of that. And we got back to the office, his office, and he asked me, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yeah, I just have a couple of them." And that's another HR gimme that I'll give you also. Whenever they ask you, "Do you have any questions?" always have at least two insightful questions. And insightful means, or doesn't mean, how much am I getting paid and when can I take my first vacation? Those aren't insightful questions. An insightful question would be something like I asked this individual, "Can you describe the culture here in this organization?" And the person wasn't prepared for that question. In fact, he was taken aback. He had to think for a minute, and it surprised him. But when he finally started speaking, he said, "I've got to be honest with you. The culture here is hostile. People fight. They don't get along. It's dog eat dog, and everybody is trying to climb the ladder. And it's just a volatile workplace." And I asked him the second follow-up question: "What happened to the person that I'll be replacing if I'm hired?" And he said she finally got fed up and left. So don't be afraid, first of all, to ask questions like that, because it's better to find that out at the beginning before you commit yourself to an organization and then find out later on down the line that you made a big mistake. But to know that a company is volatile, that it's hostile. Folks, I tell you, I didn't take that job. It didn't make any difference how much they offered. Just to know that that was the environment would tell me that I would be regretting and be depressed even going to work every day. So you don't need that. But the need for affiliation is that need to be able to connect with people and establish relationships and friendships. And then there's the need for power. And this is the desire to influence or control others and be responsible for others and have authority over others. So in leadership, we teach power, the different sources of power, and we'll go over that later on. But the need to achieve, the need to be relational, and the need for power are very important needs that theorists say need to be met. Now, reinforcement theory, expectancy theory, and equity theory. Let's take a look at these. Now, reinforcement theory. It's a motivational theory that looks at the relationship between behavior and its consequences by changing or modifying followers' on-the-job behavior through the appropriate use of immediate rewards or punishments. This is one of the oldest models when it comes to leadership and management because it does give you faster results than the other types of models out there that are more developmental and relational. Really, reinforcement theory indicates that I can get you to do whatever I want. It makes no difference if you're happy or if you are motivated. If I want more work out of you, I can incorporate rewards or punishments, and that will in return elicit those behaviors that I want out of you. It usually comes from behavior theorists such as B.F. Skinner, and they believe that you could train like an animal people to do really what you want them to do. Now, here are some of the reinforcement perspectives on motivation. You have behavior modification. Here's a set of techniques by which reinforcement theory is used to modify behavior. If I don't want you to do a certain thing, then I'm going to incorporate rewards or punishments to modify that behavior. This is really what they use in prisons today. If I want you to behave, then I'm either going to reward you with maybe a television in the common area, or I can take it away. I can give you privileges to go out in the yard and exercise, or I can take that away. These are rewards and punishments. And for me to use negative reinforcement would be, if you'll behave, I will bring you back that television or let you go back outside. That's removing the punishment. And then you have the law of effect, which indicates that states that positively reinforced behavior tends to be repeated, and behavior that is not reinforced tends not to be repeated. Now, a guy named Ivan Pavlov, and you've probably heard him before or heard of him before, he did an experiment with his dogs. They called them Pavlov's dogs, and that was the name, I guess, of the experiment. And what Pavlov did was put some meat down in front of his dogs and then rang a bell. He rang a bell and then put meat down in front of his dogs. And he did that for several days. Every time he rang a bell, he would put meat down for them to eat. And then after a while, he rang the bell, but he didn't put any meat down. But what the dogs did was salivate. They would become hungry. They were triggered, or they were programmed to salivate at the sound of that bell because they thought they were about to have a meal. And that's what you would call modifying behavior or reinforcing behavior. He wanted them to salivate, and he did that after ringing a bell, giving them meat. But now, after a while of them not getting meat and him ringing a bell, the dogs no longer salivated. He would ring the bell but not give them anything, and then the dogs started to revert back to their previous behavior, where a bell didn't mean anything to them at that point. That's called extinction. Now, when you are trying to reinforce behavior, you have to continually reinforce it. This is why a lot of times change management doesn't work, because we will change an organization, we'll move towards new and desired behaviors. However, we won't keep that reinforced behavior or that new behavior reinforced. And as a result, people will typically go back to their original behaviors. So understanding that is very important. You want to give, as you see here, positive rewards to reinforce behaviors or encourage behaviors, and then you want to remove unpleasant consequences for them to once they have modified their behavior. Negative reinforcement, as I've said, is the withdrawal of an unpleasant consequence once a behavior is improved. Punishment is imposing an unpleasant outcome. And again, we do see that in companies today. If you're late, you get written up. And if you're late over a certain amount of time, you could get docked pay. You could be fired. So that would be an example of a punishment. And then the negative reinforcement would be to reinstate your maybe your pay if you show up on time through the next week. Extinction, we just talked about also, and that's the weakening or the removal of a reinforced behavior of a behavior because it hasn't been reinforced. I'll let you guys take a look at Exhibit ch8. That's just shaping behavior with reinforcement. You can do it through what they say here: avoidance, learning, positive reinforcement, punishment, extinction. All of these play in to shaping a person's behavior. Now, expectancy theory. Victor Vroom came out with this theory, and that suggests that motivation depends on individuals' mental expectations about their ability to perform tasks and receive desired rewards. Now, let's take a look at these components. First of all, you have with expectancy, you have the expected performance, the effort that will take place. And then you want to ask yourself, as you take a look at this first section, will putting forth effort into the task lead to the desired performance? Will me studying for an exam lead to me passing that exam? And then you move on to the second level, and will high performance lead to the desired outcome? Do I want to get an A? If that's the desired outcome, then that's the question that you'll ask. Will putting effort into the task, such as passing the exam, lead to me getting an A? And if it will, then you keep moving. And then the third level, are the available outcomes highly valued? Well, that depends. Is an A valuable to you? If you are the type that says, nah, I'll get by with a C, I'll still graduate, then maybe putting forth the effort that an A student would in studying for exams, you may not put out that, you may not value that outcome as much. So your effort may not be as motivated, it may not be as concerted as someone who is trying to get an A. But before you do anything, you're going to evaluate these three things. First of all, what is it that's expected of me? Secondly, what do I want out of it? And third, do I value the outcome enough to put in the effort? And with all of that, if everything's going for you, then you're going to be motivated. This is why many of you are in school right now. Your motivation is to graduate. Your motivation is maybe to get an A. Your motivation is to get a better paying job or to go into the mission field or what have you. But evidently, the outcome and the value that you place on the outcome is high enough so that you will put forth the effort and perform whatever's necessary to make that outcome available. And that's really, in a nutshell, before you do anything, you're going to look at what's expected of you. Can I do it? How much effort is it going to take? And how much do I value the outcome before you do anything? And again, this is something that you can use, whether it's in your personal life or whether it's in your professional life or in ministry. This has value, and it's probably one of the most enduring theories that we have when it comes to motivation. So you would do well to remember that one and to apply it in whatever effort that you're thinking about engaging in. Today we took a look at some of the needs theories out there, but we also took a look at expectancy theory. And the reason why I wanted us to look at that in particular is because no one's going to do anything without evaluating what's necessary or what's wanted, the effort that it's going to take, their assessment of their ability to be able to achieve the desired outcome, and whether or not the outcome is going to be worth the effort. And when you think about it in life, that's what we do all the time. We make those assessments. It will determine whether or not we go and get our degree, or whether we finish our degree, or whether we go into ministry, or whether we go into a relationship or buy an expensive object like a house or something. So expectancy theory explains a lot, but it's also useful and has utility both in ministry and the workplace as we understand a little bit more how it can affect a person's motivation. Well, that's all I have for today, folks. We will see you tomorrow.